Hey everybody, thanks for joining me again today. So the big question, would you rather have $4 million or would you rather have zero? And I know, dumb question, right? Give me the 4 million. But there may be something that you're doing that's slowly robbing you from that chance without spending any additional money. And what we're going to be going over today is economic value added, EVA. And this was something that was championed by Lee Iacocca back in the 90s. And basically what it says is it's not about the money you spend today. It's about the future opportunities of that money that could give you in the future. So, a easy example of this is paying cash for things, right? We all know, I hope we all know that financing things can get pretty expensive and it's not the best way if you can avoid it, right? And a lot of wealthy people I talk to, they go, yeah, well, I pay cash for everything. I don't have any debt, right? But there may be one more level to things that maybe you don't quite understand. I know it was a shock for me when I found it out, but there is a way to control and compound that money for the rest of your life. So instead of spending that $10,000, there's a way to control it, then spend the $10,000, but you're not giving up the future opportunity cost of that money because it's still under your control, right? Just similar to a finance company, how they charge more for the money that they give you and you give the money over time. We can flip the script and do that ourselves through the infinite banking concept. So I'm going to get into a few examples here. What we're going to do is cover the cost of raising a child in Canada and what that looks like. And then I'm going to get into how to control and compound those dollars instead of having it go to zero. And, hopefully by the end of the video, I can explain why paying cash for things is maybe not the best strategy always. So first thing I'm going to go over is the cost of raising a child in Canada. So let's get some numbers here. This is a CTV News article and it's based on Stats Canada numbers. This is in 2023, so lest we not forget the 2% inflation target that our government has for us. How thoughtful of them. So basically, without getting into all the nitty-gritty details, we got a chart here. And we're looking at basically from ages 0 to 22. Just think about yourself. I know I was out by 20, but I came back before. So, there is longevity costs because things are taking longer these days and things are more expensive and children staying at home is a lot more common, especially in university. So our lower income group, which is a two-parent household making $80,000 a year jointly, they will spend $379,000, $379,510 on a child, one child from 0 to 22. The medium income group, they will spend $488,390 raising one child from 0 to 22. And the higher income group, they'll spend $706,660 raising one child. And just to be clear, this does include housing costs. This includes vehicles because, you're going to need to upgrade if you're in a one-bedroom apartment, to have a family. And you might need to get rid of the sports car and get a minivan, right? So it's not just school or food, we're looking at the total cost for a change in lifestyle to raise a kid with two-parent household. So the number we're going to look at is the $488,390, just to kind of be conservative, go in the middle. So the first question, do you want zero, right? When you spend this money, this is not money that, Andrew, I don't have $488,000. That's crazy. Like, this is money you will spend. Like, this is the average, according to Stats Canada, this is what you will spend on a child. So this is not like, where am I going to get the money? Like, this is money that you're going to spend 100%. And using our current financial banking system and our current mindset, either you're going to finance it, a lot of these costs, or you're going to pay cash, right? And either one of those, whether you finance it and go into debt first and then slowly pay it off, or you save up your money and then you pay cash for these items and expenses, zero is the end result, right? There's no control, there's no compounding. This is just work, earn, spend, zero, right? So, okay, now we kind of have a baseline for what raising a child costs. So now I'm going to show you how you can control and compound that money, right? And remember, this is not money, like, this is money you're going to spend, right? It's your kid. I hope you're going to spend the money. I know you are, right? So what happens if we look at the same dollar amount, but just using a different banking system, right? Let's see what a privatized banking system looks like. So I have a policy here. So again, male, age 35. And what I did was, instead of 22 years, I just did 20 years just for the ease of illustration, because a lot of policies are a 20-pay policy. So if we divide 488,000 by 20, the exact amount there, I'll show you with the calculator. So if we go, teacher always said, show my math. 488,390 divided by 20. So that puts us at $24,419.50. So what I have here is an illustration showing a 20-pay policy, $24,419.50 for the annual premium. So by the time the child, so that's your net cash outlay, right? We spent $488,000. That's what you're going to spend on this policy, right? And you're also going to spend it on your child. And the thing is, as this thing grows, so let's look at age 20. So here you've spent the $488,000, right? All the money's gone. But wait a second. There's $763,000 of cash value in the policy. And this is because these policies, which I didn't know at the time, these policies grow, they compound on, like, in a tax sheltered vehicle, which is participating whole life insurance, which means there's no tax on the growth of these policies. And the other important factor is you have access to this money up to 100%, but basically, if we look at 90% policy loan ratio, you can access this money without any credit checks, without any funny business. You basically just click a button and say, I want this amount of money. And there's usually two questions. Do you want cash deposit in your bank account, or do you want a check? So by using this strategy, spending the $488,000, putting it through your own private banking system first, through your life insurance contract, and then using that money, it continues to compound and grow. And the other cool thing is, with these life insurance contracts, you put $100,000 in, and let's say you borrow 90. Well, you go, well, there's only $10,000 left. That's actually not quite true. your growth is calculated on the total premiums you've put in. The policy loans are a separate calculation. So your 100,000 continues to grow as if you hadn't touched it, which is another very powerful aspect to these policies, which makes the infinite banking concept really work, right? So if we look here at age 20, you've spent 488,000, but there's $763,008 in the policy, which is kind of funny because it actually puts us over the higher income group. So even if you're a middle income family, just running your money you would spend on raising your child through a policy first, and then if you chose to spend all that money on the child, you could actually give your child an upper income bracket lifestyle, right? Which I thought that was kind of cool. And circling back to the policy is, okay, let's look at age 22 right here. So the other family, they spent the $488,000, the money's gone, and they're at zero, basically, right? But if we look here at the growth of these policies, so the difference between age 21 and 22, if we pull out our handy dandy calculator, so if we go 861,985 minus 810,753, so that puts us at $51,000 a year growth in that policy. So at this point, if your kid wanted to go to Harvard, or this is also a potential education savings plan, right? Because this is kicking off $51,000 a year when he's age 22. So your peers who just put the money, they worked, they put the money in the bank, they spent it on the kid, maybe they got some loans for cars, and they're always going back to zero. Where you spent the same amount of money and now you're kicking off $51,000 a year by the time the kid's 22. All of a sudden, raising a kid in Canada is looking pretty good. This is personally, I have a very similar policy to this, and I don't have any kids yet, but I know I do want them, and this is how I set myself up initially with the infinite banking concept. Well, now let's look at when the kids are when the parents become empty nesters, right? Like, let's look at retirement time here at age 65, age 66. Oh. So retire at 65, that's your last year of work. First year of income is at 66. Let's take a look at that. 63254 minus 1382197. So now you're age 65 and your policy is generating $81,000 a year, which is not a bad income. But if you have additional kids, probably a good idea to set up a policy under the wife, the second person to insure. And as the kids get older, you can expand the system. You can own policies on your children as well, and start teaching them financial responsibility and how to manage their cash flow. You're not spending any extra money. You're just managing your cash flow in a different vehicle that benefits you, not the banks, not the government. So now the answer to the big question, where does the $4 million come from? Well, here, at age 85, which is the average life expectancy in Canada for a male. So if you just managed the same money for raising a kid and putting it into a participating whole life insurance contract that's designed for you to utilize the infinite banking concept, instead of $0, you'll have $4 million. $4,005,163 by the time you're 85. So I don't know about you, but it seems kind of like a no-brainer to me. Once I figured this stuff out and understood it, it was kind of a shock. So is there anything else? Yeah, and I just want to go over one other quick thing, just to touch base on the loan amounts, right? So you're going to need the new minivan. And this is what a lot of people do, right? It's like, okay, I'll get the new minivan. It's going to be $50,000. Maybe we negotiate the guy down a little bit. It's only 5% interest, right? So it's fine. So if you look at a loan calculator, let's say we negotiate him down to 45, and we got a $10,000 trade-in value, and we got a nice little sales tax in Canada, and a 5% interest rate, right? And you go, oh, my payments are only $762. We can afford that. It's only 5%. And then the other sneaky number is you go, oh, okay, well, total interest paid, $53.44, and $45,744 was our total cost on the vehicle, which is 11% basically. So if we go 3,344 divided by 4,5,744, so that puts us at 11.6%. Like, okay, well, it's getting a little bit more expensive, but there's the real sneaky thing is these amortization schedules, right? So if we look down on year one, we pay $1,277 in interest, and we paid $48.22 in principal. Well, the first year we paid 26% in interest payments, right? That's money vaporized. And it gets a little bit better the next year. 1608 divided by 7,541. 21% interest the second year. So if you don't keep your car for the full loan period, if you trade in your car after 2 years, you're going to be paying between 21 and 24% interest, right? Like, that's money that just gets vaporized. And on average in Canada, the average Canadian pays about 34.5% of their after-tax dollars in interest payments and bank fees, right? Whether it's through auto loans, mortgages, they're the worst. Credit card debt, student loan debt, all these things add up to, take a third of your money away. So if we look back at the policy here, after about year 4, there's enough money, you can take control of that financing function for your vehicles in your life, and instead of the car company or the bank making their 5%, that's a sneaky number is what I call it, on your money, you can use this vehicle to finance your own needs. And then that growth goes back into your pocket on a tax sheltered basis. It's like a win-win. Compared to your peers doing things this way, it's like the difference between having 100-kilometer headwind that you're flying into versus having 100-kilometer tailwind, right? And the analogy being paying cash is like no wind, right? And people think, oh, no cash. Or I'm paying cash, there's no wind. This is as good as it gets. Maybe I'll try and tweak my engine and get another 5% out of it, right? But meanwhile, if you just do things a little bit differently and set yourself up for an environment for a tailwind, you're not even playing the same game anymore. Like, you will win the race every time. So I hope you guys learned something today. I'm going to keep cranking out videos, and if you're interested to learn more, book a link or click the link, book a call down below. I'd love to have a one-on-one with you and explain in any questions you have or comments. And until next time, thanks.